The leading economic indicator of the conference board was triggered in 2022, and it signaled a recession in the US. This indicator signaled the dot-com bubble, the great financial crisis, and recently the COVID recession. However, in June of 2024, the leading economic index switched off the recession signal. As a result, market participants are confused. They don't know whether the potential recession was avoided or merely delayed. In this series, we will look at various charts, examine the leading indicators of all kinds, and try to get the answer to this uncertain question. In today's part of this series, we will look at various household indicators. The four sections of the indicators are consumer loans, credit card loans, household savings, and housing. If you follow the news, you may have heard the word delinquency quite frequently as of late. That's because more people are unable to pay off their debts. Here we have the chart of the delinquency rate of consumer loans of all commercial banks. At first glance, it seems that the current level is not much elevated, and it's even below its long-term average. Upon closer look, however, it's evident that the delinquency rate increased dramatically over the last 2 years, and it is now higher than the pre-pandemic levels. As you might know, for most of the economic indicators, it's not the absolute change that's the most important, it's the rate of change. So, if the delinquency rate increases over time but not drastically, then commercial banks will take notes and act accordingly, and the adverse effects will be negligible. As can be seen from the chart, the delinquency rate on commercial loans spikes up drastically prior to recessions. It simply suggests that consumers cannot keep up with their expenses and debts, thus they fail to pay their obligations. This rate went vertical over the last 2 years, and there are no signs of stopping. When you remember that the Fed's interest rate and quantitative tightening work in long lags, the picture becomes less colorful. The fast rising delinquency rate could be explained by the record high interest rate on the credit card plans. The average annual interest rate that commercial banks charge for credit cards has gone vertical since 2022 and now is above 21%. As credit cards are the most common form of revolving credit, the snowball is likely to get even bigger if the interest rate on credit cards is to stay at record levels. The delinquency rate on credit card loans of all commercial banks is also affected by the high interest rate that's being charged on credit card plans. The delinquency rate doubled from 1.6% in 2022 to 3.2% in 2024. Logically, the delinquency rate goes up prior to recessions. It increased significantly prior to the Great Financial Crisis. However, it didn't see the same level of increase prior to the COVID recession. And for the dot-com crash, the spike in the delinquency rate on credit card loans started in 1994 and lasted for 3 years. However, the recession materialized only in 2000. Thus, there can be deviations and uncertainty when it comes to predicting recessions through various leading indicators. The current rate of 3.2% is far from the record high levels of 6.8% that happened in 2009 during the Great Financial Crisis. However, the rate of change is significant. If the delinquency rate on credit card loans of all commercial banks sits at 3.2%, the same metric for the small regional banks that are not among the top 100 largest banks is at a record high level of 7.9%. This indicator also increased substantially prior to recessions. Interestingly, prior to the dot-com bubble crash, it had two spikes. The first one started in 1994 and the second one started in 2000, just prior to the recession. Thus, there could be more than one spike in the delinquency rate, and not every increase indicates an immediate recession. The delinquency rate approximately doubled from 4.1% in 2022 to 7.9% in 2024. The gap between big banks and small regional banks is likely to widen, and this is one of the indicators that shows it. The record high interest rate and the delinquency rates bring us to the total debt balance of credit card plans. As of June 2024, the total credit card debt is above 1.1 trillion in the US, which is a 45% increase in only 3 years. It's terrifying to think that credit card debts are about 5% of the US GDP, while the interest rate on them is above 20%. Similar to any debt chart, the credit card debt balance is rising exponentially. However, it rises dramatically prior to recessions and then it cools off for a few years until it starts to rise again. The next household leading indicator is net saving as a percentage of gross domestic income. As can immediately be noticed, this ratio has had a negative sloping trend line for the last few decades. And as a result, it went negative during the last two recessions, the Great Financial Crisis and the pandemic recession. And it also went negative in 2023. This is a worrying chart as this indicator went significantly lower for almost every recession, which is quite logical. And now it not only had a negative growth rate for the last 2 years, but also went below zero, meaning that households have negative net savings. For the next chart, we have buying conditions for housing as surveyed by consumers. The buying condition is computed as the share of households reporting good conditions minus the share of households reporting bad conditions plus 100. It systematically decreased prior to recessions and has good accuracy as a leading economic indicator. After the COVID recession, the buying conditions plummeted in a way never seen before. The drawdown from 2021 to 2024 is 75%, as it went from 140 to 34 in only 3 years. This is significant because it is the lowest level of buying conditions ever. The current rate is lower than the 1970s when both the inflation rate and the interest rate were double digits. This chart could be one of the most bearish ones when it comes to predicting the probability of a recession. These were the household leading indicators, and in case it was not clear enough, dark clouds are brewing over households in the US and elsewhere. It remains to be seen whether a recession materializes or not, but one thing is clear. The household indicators suggest that the probability of it is elevated. Thank you for tuning in. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss the next part. Have a great day and I'll see you next time.